So, and in order to do this now this is going to be kind of the focus of, we're going to start to use the mixer here now. And what I always do, in kind of the backbone of how I start out with the mix, is when pulling levels up, it's important to get close to the maximum level of the master bus, but not too close. So you want to leave a bit of a headroom here when you start mixing in order to fit other instruments in. So if I start here, we start by, this is actually another thing that I should probably talk about, yeah. So what we want to do is we want to loop these. We want to have a loop here because we want to listen to the same piece at once. So I've bound this myself, the loop. If we go to region, now what this would do is, if we press this region, we're going to bring this up a bit so you can hear it. Press this region, we press region, and we press loop. It's going to loop this entire region for the entire time. And as you can see, I've bound this to J. I don't know if this is bound originally or if there's anything else bound to J, but I've bound this to J just to make it easy to work with. So as you can see here, we're looping over a pretty apart. We're going to actually move this loop point back a bit here, like that, and this activates looping. So you can also press L. So we're going to loop over this part of the song just to kind of show, we have everything almost playing here. So this will be a good place to loop over when we start mixing. So I'm going to pull this back again, and now we're going to go into the mixer. We're going to start to pull these different tracks up one by one. We're going to start with the kick. And now what I want you to keep an eye on is here. This tells us the master bus, kind of how high it's going. So you can see that it's maxing out at about -6 here with the kick. And I want the kick to be fairly prominent. I always want that in my mixes. So we're going to pull this up a bit more until we reach about -5 here. So yeah, so now we're on about -5. And that's a good starting point for it. Because here, what you don't want, things peak when you get over this one. So if I pull this all the way up, or even beyond, you can see that things peak. And the more things you add in your mix, the more things have to battle for the same kind of level and frequency space. So even if you start out and you think that we're starting out low by going to -5 approximately, I can tell you that things are quickly going to fill up here. So you just left press this, by the way, left click this to reset it, and you can see. So we can say that we're at -5 here, approximately. So we have the kick up here. We'll start pulling up the snare. That's a pretty okay level. Yeah, you can see that it's still at well under -5. We'll start pulling up the hi-hat as well. Yeah, as you can see, this is pretty heavily panned already in the original recording. Now I want this to be a bit more in the middle, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease the stereo space of this one. So if you grab this by left clicking and you pull it in, and it kind of, as you can hear, it draws towards the middle more. You just scroll this up. You can hear that works fine. Now we're going to add the tom fill, and this is going to be, we're going to move our loop points here. I'd recommend, moving this to beats because we're going to work with that more. Move our loop points like this. Activate the loop. You can hear that, or you can see that the tom fill is supposed to play here. So we'll start by pulling the tom fill up here. We still have quite a lot of headroom over here, which is great. So that would kind of conclude our basic drum mix. Now I want to stress again that I am using headphones here, so the stereo quality of the mix might not get perfect, but it's a tutorial, so live with it. I am going to, now what we want to do is, what I usually do is I try to group things as much as possible, because if you have a good balance in the drum kit, for example, which I feel like we kind of have now, you want to kind of preserve this. So even if you want to move the drum kit up in volume, but you don't want to move the faders individually, you need to group the tracks, and you need to group them anyway, because it's a nice way of keeping things together. So in order to group things, this is kind of the grouping list. It'll show if things are grouped. If you hold here, you left click, you pull down, you can see that it creates a kind of list here. You pull down over there, you release, it creates a group. So this is now becoming a group. We call this group drums. And now this is the important part. We want these to share gain. And we also want it to share the gain in a relative way, because if we don't activate this relative gain sharing, what will happen is if we change the fader on the kick, it's going to put all of the faders in the group to the same level. So it'll ruin our entire mix, basically. So put this to the gain sharing and relative. So what we can see here now, if we start playing again here, is if we pull this up, the levels and the balance in the drum kit is preserved. This wouldn't be the case if we didn't activate relative gain sharing, because otherwise if I pull this up, all other faders would get put at the same level as this one. So yet again, make sure that we're at roughly -5, something like that. Yeah, that should be good enough. And you can deactivate groups by left clicking on them. So I can left click here to deactivate them, and if I move the fader here up 1 notch, it's not going to affect the other ones while the group isn't active. Move this one down, same way there, activate it again. You can do this exact same thing out here. So deactivate by doing that, left clicking, and activate again. So that's, I almost always use grouping, and I'm going to show you another thing why. If you happen to move this around, and you see that things are scattered out, you can right click here and you can press collect group. Oh wait, seems I have misunderstood that. Okay, well, never mind. Scratch that. So moving on, we're going to add the strings, or actually no, what we're going to do is we're going to add the main guitar, because this makes out the kind of the backbone of the song. And we're going to have to have that be prominent in the mix, but not too prominent. So we're going to start playing here. I'm going to start to pull this one up. Going to the mixer. Give a track here. Where are you? There we go. Pull you up again. So as you can hear, that's a pretty okay level. Now we also want to kind of fatten this out and make this a bit more prominent. Now normally what I do here is I'd start EQing and I'd start compressing, but like I said, this is a basic tutorial, so we're not going to do that now. Excuse me, there might be a follow-up tutorial where we do that. But right now we're going to focus on just getting a balanced mix together. But this guitar is in need of compression. But never mind, what we're going to do instead is we're going to add a reverb and a delay to this one. And in order to do that, we right click, we go to new aux end, we press reverb, we get a reverb aux end, and we go back here, we press delay. We can also actually start by putting the widening one in on here. So you can see we have all of this here. So if we start playing here again, and we play a little with this, you can hear how it kind of works with the FX buses. So Oh, actually, I'm going to have to pull this one up quite a bit. To pull this one up as well then. So that's the reverb. Sorry, I pulled up the levels of these again because we're actually mixing kind of weak here, so we're probably gonna have to have these at these levels now. But yeah, okay, so let's listen to how the delay sounds. You can hear a pretty clear delay tail coming here. Pull this on again. And the wide here. You can hear the kind of the chorus effect. It also makes the sound a bit wider and fatter. But what we want to do here now is we don't want to go all out on the effects and things like that. We're actually going to pull the level up a bit here because I'm going to raise the level of the master session here, so to make us hear a bit more here. Going back. Okay, so what we want is we want this to have a little reverb, quite a lot of delay to make it kind of blend in more, and then a little widening. So we start playing here again. We start trying to get the levels right with these things. You can hear a bit of the reverb now. That's nice. A little delay. It should be enough. A little widening. And now, as we've added tons of effects and things like that to that, we can pull down the level of the track a bit here. Even a bit more. There we go. So we're going to have to go back and adjust this throughout the mixing process. But basically, yeah, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to set a good sound for the guitar, since this is playing, if we zoom out, this is playing in the entire song. And I also wanted to be smooth, and I wanted to not be too prominent and not be too loud. It's hard to adjust the levels before we put all of the other contents in the song. But still, yeah, that's the kind of general thought behind it. So we will start again here by, oh yeah, and also I put these post fader just so you see that. And that's because if I put these pre-fader, they wouldn't align to wherever how I manipulate my fader here. So having these pre-fader would make the effects kind of constant. So the reverb we can experiment here. So if we put it here, it's a very loud reverb, regardless of how I pull these. You can still hear a very loud reverb. Same with the delay if we move it here. Same with everything really. So this, see, the fader is actually at the minimum level, but we're still hearing the process signals. So putting these things post fader is a way of connecting them or relating them to the main fader. So we're going to pull this back again, kind of like that somewhere. Great. And see, I think the reverb is a bit loud. Great. Now let's start by actually adding the I think the melodies. So we're going to pull the first melody up. Pull the second one up. So as you can hear, these sound a bit different. What I'm thinking is I want to pan these. I want to have the second melody, listen to this one by itself. I want to have that to the right. I want to have the first one to the left. Because this play roughly the same amount. The second melody plays a bit more. But so basically what we'll start doing here is we'll start panning these. So if you select the first one, I said this was going to be left, right? Yeah. In order to pan these, this is a stereo track, so I can't pan this now because it's fully aligned. So what we'll do is we'll grab this, the width, we'll make it about 41% wide. To start with, we'll listen to, and we'll move this to the left. Now normally one thing about panning is you don't want to move stuff unless you have a very specific thought. You never want to pull to pan things fully. Obviously not. You never. Well, I can hardly think of any scenario where you want to pan something 100%, but still like going up to 90% and things like that, 80%. It's still. Sorry, you'll have to have a pretty specific reason for doing that. So. This one we're going to pan just a little, just enough to make it sound like it's coming from the left. Well, actually a bit more like that, but not without it being only from the left. Excuse me. So we're going to do the same thing with the second melody here. So decrease this one, pull this to the right. So the same kind of feeling here. We have it aligned to the right, but it's not quite 100% to the right. It's actually quite not very far to the right at all, but it still gives the feeling of being to the right. Now this is for a number of reasons. For one, we have rhythm guitars here that are intended to be panned quite heavily, and we're going to pan them beyond these melodies to make them kind of encapsulate the sound, in lack of a better way of describing it. So we're going to continue to try and fit these into the mix now. So you can hear they sound very dry and they sound very boring compared to the rest of it, and they're also pretty loud. So we're going to start by adding the same aux sends and the same sense that we had on the main guitar. And now for some reason Ardour resets our panning every time we add something like this, so you're going to have to repan it. Pull it down to about 60% and put that to about here and increase. Okay. And while mixing this one, we're going to pull this all the way down to not hear that, and we're going to start. So this one needs a lot of reverb, I think, to fit in. Also needs a lot of delay. Still needs to go down a bit. I'm going to raise the master volume a bit again here. This is actually, this is what happens to DJs when they do gigs. They're kind of the hearing, they get used to the volume, and in order to get the same kind of effect as they did in the beginning, they have to keep raising the volume, and that's kind of a big factor in why DJs usually have tinnitus and hurt their hearing and things like that. Boring things like that, I'm not going to hurt my hearing, but I'm still going to have to increase this as we go along in order to get my fix of audio level. So that sounds pretty okay now. I don't think we're going to put any wide on here, so I'm going to right click and delete this one. We'll leave that to the main guitar. Now we'll go to the guitar melody 2. We'll add the same things here, the reverb and the delay, the same thing here. I'm not going to add the wide thing here because I think it's not going to work fully. So we'll start by listening, and we'll start by pulling up the reverb. Oh, sorry, yeah, it reset the panning again, so we'll repan it. We'll also pull up the level. Pull up the reverb. delay. You can hear a little bit of a tail of the kind of so you can hear also when you stop, you can hear a bit reverb and delay tail here. If we mute the drums, now as these are grouped, when we mute, it's going to mute everything. So if we listen to only the guitars, you can hear the tails of all of the guitars quite a lot with the reverb. I think this is a bit too high actually, so we're going to, since this has a distorted sound, it's way more, it's not as smooth as the other sound, so we're going to have to pull that one down a bit. One notch. So that's nice, I think. I'll put the drums back in. So there we go. Now we can add now we can go on to the kind of guitar rhythms, and these are, if we solo this and listen to only this, my my thought of the sound is it's going to be we're going to pan this pretty aggressively to the left and this one to the right then. And we're going to put this far back in the mix by putting a lot of reverb and a lot of delay on it. So it's going to be there to kind of fill up the space in the mix, but not be very prominent. So we'll start by adding our accents. So we'll add the reverb, we'll add the delay. I'm going to start to pan. I'm going to listen to this while we pan. There we go, it's panned right. We'll pull this one up as well. So that for the moment that sounds okay. It doesn't sound super, but it's good enough to pull up the next one, the guitar rhythm right. We'll make a note here of how did we pan this. It's at 78.22 with a width of 43%. So we'll kind of mimic that. First we'll add our reverb and our delay, and we will pull this one down to what, 41. Oh, was it 43? Yeah, it was 43. Oh, my poor memory. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So this is now panned appropriately. We'll see also the level. It's at minus 15 decibels. And it's at almost past the S. So we'll pull it. We'll write this here. So minus 15, enter. So let's channel to the right level. We'll pull this one up to about there. I should make it sound okay. So, okay, let's listen to it again with the other guitar enabled as well. As you can hear, they are way too loud. The reverb is also pretty much too loud. So we'll pull this back a bit here. But I am also fairly happy with the levels of them are obviously the paired in levels. So we'll group this right away. So we'll pull down. We'll actually include the guitar rhythm middle here, as you can see as well. We'll include this one as we're going to get to that one later on. So we'll call this rhythm guitars. We want them to share the gain. We want them to be relative. And we'll add it like that. So so the levels are pretty okay. Now we want to go on to this guitar middle and listen to how that sounds now. So we'll disable this group. Actually, we'll disable this group just for the means. We'll mute these two, and we'll. That's also just a guitar to kind of fill up the space of it. So this one only needs delay, I think. So we'll add a bit of delay. So we have a bit of a delay. And now we can activate the group again, because I think this is going to be balanced. Sorry, we'll listen to it from here. Okay, that sounds at least fairly okay enough to progress. So we only have a few things left here to add. We have the guitar center, which if you listen to by itself is just a little filler for the kind of a little build up here. So I doubt we're actually going to need to put any effects on this. We'll just listen to it and try to get level right. Now something that I always use, I just haven't activated yet, is this auto return. This is great because if we want to repeatedly listen to this section and make changes, just play. And when we stop, it goes back to where we started. And that's very handy in general when doing small fixes and things like that. So I usually activate that. I'm gonna keep that activated for now, I think. But anyway. So what we have left to add to the song is we have the piano, we have the strings. That's it. For a first kind of run through of the mix. So what we'll do now is we'll group the guitar melodies here as well, just to have that done. Guitar melody. Make them gain relative share. So we have that grouped. And we'll go on to adding the piano. And this is also, the piano is supposed to be kind of a small kind of filler out thing. So this is going to need quite a lot of reverb and a little delay. So we'll start by pulling this up and listening to it, because it starts over here. As you can hear, all that we want is all that we want is a pretty. We want to sound. We just want to barely hear it, kind of. So we'll add a bit of a reverb to this to make it a bit fatter and a bit more audible. There we go. It's at least in there and it's good enough for now. Now the next thing and the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add the strings. And strings in general, if we solo these two, and we'll listen to them. We pull up this, just make a... So these are very basic strings and they don't sound very well by themselves. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of put a bit of a reverb on both of them. So we start by putting both a delay and a reverb on the melody. We start, and we'll also put the same thing on this one. Now, the one thing that you need to think about when dealing with reverbs and stuff like that is you generally, well, I generally try and avoid putting reverbs on things with a lot of bass content unless I specifically want an effect, because it's very easy to put delaying, reverbing bass stuff is a short ticket to muddying up your mix quite a lot, because reverbing something that's very bassy is messy, to say the least. So I generally try and avoid that, but what we're going to attempt putting a little bit of reverb on the bass here, and we're also going to later on, if that proves to be a problem, but it sounds kind of good at least in the mid to up frequencies, we're going to try and filter out some bass. Actually, we're going to do that anyway when doing the finishing touches of this mix. We're going to filter out bass from the reverb, because that's something that you also need to think about and do quite a lot, is throw a high pass filter on the reverb and make sure that your bass kind of don't get through the reverb, because it muddies up the mix. So we're going to get to that in a second. But first, let's add these to the song. We'll start by adding the bass, pull the melody down. We'll start listening. Same thing here. You want to hear it. You want to kind of fill up the mix and the sound, but you don't want it to be too loud. You don't want it to be prominent. So try a little bit here. Actually, we'll go without both reverb and delay on this one. Just leave this empty like that. And we'll move on to the melody. Now these are going to have quite a bit more of reverb, so we can put that right away here. We can also put this one up. We'll start listening.